All right, so more than 3,400 journalism jobs have been cut in the United States over the past 5 years. 500 of those went in the first 3 months of 2026 alone. The Washington Post, Politico, Vox, and the Wall Street Journal all made cuts in the first 2 months of this year. At the same time, NewsGuard has identified over 3,000 AI content farm websites, publishing news shaped content with no human journalists behind it, and counting. So, what are you actually reading? That is the question this episode answers. And I think a lot of people that keep up with a lot of news are already asking this question with this whole AI explosion. The honest picture is more specific than the headline suggests. AI in news is not one thing. At the transparent end of the spectrum, AI has been writing sports recaps, earnings summaries, and weather reports for several years, often disclosed, largely uncontroversial, genuinely suitable for the task. The Associated Press has been producing automated earnings briefs since 2014. This is not new, and it is not the problem. The problem is in the middle and at the far end. AI assisted analysts and longer form pieces increasingly carry no disclosure. AI content farms, sites that exist entirely to publish AI generated content formatted to look like news. Now, number over 3,000. Yeah, so that number's over 3,000. And the industry's own research is telling only 33% of people believe journalists actually check AI output before publishing it. That is not a fringe concern, it is the majority position. So I think a lot of people are really starting to pay attention to the AI slop that's coming out because of the war. Because it's no secret that the Fox, CNBC, CNN, and all these big corporation news outlets, media, they are so full of propaganda that I can't even watch them anymore. And a lot of people do. They listen to what they hear, they believe, and that's why that so many organizations buy a lot of these media outlets because they've learned through algorithms, through polling, through statistics that they can skew people's votes and ideas, public opinion, by basically just force feeding garbage down your throat and lying to you, basically. And it's a problem on YouTube. And now it's getting worse because now they have AI avatars that are modeled after, um, you know, famous icons or well known, ex military or whoever it is that basically speaks and creates video on themselves. It's very easy now to create an AI version of that person. You don't know which country put this out. And unless you know what you're looking for, a lot of times most people just think it's that person talking and telling. And if you look at a lot of the titles, the way they're written nowadays is it's kind of like ad blindness. People stop clicking and stop reading stuff if it doesn't make a bold claim that sounds interesting enough. So if you put a title that is just merely the truth of what's actually being written, a lot of people won't click on it. But if you make a false claim, like, you know, Trump has agreed to launch nuclear, weapons or something along those nature, you might believe it, and then they can even create content as if it's real, but it's not. Um, and I've seen this all over the place, and people that aren't savvy, I understand. I talk to people in my family all the time, and they're all, "Oh, did you hear?" And I'm like, "Where did you get that?" And it's like, "Oh, I heard it on Truth Social or Twitter or Fox News," and I'm like, "Yeah, you're not getting the whole story there. You're getting a propaganda piece, nonsense." And this is a big problem, and I think people need to be aware of this. So I don't want to monologue too much, but I think when there's something that people feel really strong about, like the war and how it's going to affect the economy, and people see prices, people start looking. And I found that the best news that I can get is from like independent journalists and experts in the field that are basically just passionate about what they're doing, and they're putting out content and they're doing collaborations. I've verified that it is their channel and it is not some fake, clone channel. And you can kind of tell by just watching over time and hearing and double checking. And eventually you kind of do your due diligence and you start to figure out who is telling the truth and being honest and who actually also is trying to find the truth. And here's the crazy part is I've seen AI channels actually that are putting up like it's a fictitious character and they're putting up things about the war and things that have happened that Fox everybody's lying about and saying didn't happen, isn't, there's no news on it. And then a week later you find out what this AI channel was saying was actually 100% true because somehow they're getting the source, perhaps they want to stay anonymous, and they're getting the real information and they're putting it out via AI avatars, characters, and they're getting a ton of views. But then there's also channels that look exactly the same that are using the same AI avatar, but it's a totally different channel that they've probably cloned or something, and it's all just nonsense garbage. It's very difficult to know what's real and what isn't. All right, so the honest picture is more, okay, we already talked about that. So there are no perfect AI detectors, and that is the problem. The tools that exist give probability scores, not verdicts. But there are practical signals that are faster and more reliable than running text through a detector. The first is authorship. Is there a named journalist with a verifiable history at this outlet? Can you find other work by this person? AI content farms often use plausible sounding bylines with no digital footprint. A name that exists nowhere outside this article is a signal worth noting. The second is sourcing. Original journalism names specific people, specific documents, specific places. AI generated content tends towards generic attribution. Experts say, according to reports, sources suggest that is not proof of AI authorship. It is a pattern consistent with content produced without original reporting. The third is the institutional content. A story on a site you have never heard of, with no clear ownership, no content information, and an ad heavy layout mimicking a local newspaper format. That profile now describes thousands of AI content farms. The site design is doing impression work that the content itself cannot. Now, I'm going to be honest. Most of the well known outlets, at least right now, are putting out complete garbage. I don't know if it's because they've been contacted internally by whoever owns them or if the presidential administration has connections. I know that they're capable of reaching out and killing stories and there's a lot of money. So the thing that you have to keep in mind is the bigger a network is, the more likely that they're going to be basically throwing a narrative propaganda at you because they have some underlying motivation. I find that the bigger the network, you can only look at it on a surface grain of salt and you cannot listen to what they're saying. And I think that's the key here is we need to start not believing just everything we hear. Um, and it makes me think that back in the day when they had a lot more control over the media and there wasn't so many independent journalists and anybody could create, there's a lot more slop out there, but there's also it's a lot more likely that there is the truth out there at the same time. All right, so this shift does not mean the news is broken. Yeah, it just means that it's a lot more watered down and there's a lot more slop out there. And the bigger the money, the bigger they try to control you. It means the collaboration has changed. The New York Times now has 13 million subscribers and added 310,000 new paying readers in the first quarter of 2026 alone. I mean, and they kill stories all the time. At the moment, the content ecosystem is flooding with AI generated material. The market for high trust, visibly human, original journalism is growing. People are not abandoning information, they are paying to know it's real. The practical adjustment for a career reader is not to distrust everything, it is to apply more scrutiny at the source level rather than the content level. Who published this? And what is their track record? Who reported it? And can I find their other work? Is this consistent with what organizations I already trust are saying? These questions were always worth asking. They're now worth asking faster and like a lot more. So, I think a lot of it now is communities and paid communities where you have groups of people that do a lot of outside due diligence and they're constantly verifying because public communities are infiltrated as well. And once you can find a source on a particular topic where it's like the passion of that network, of that group, to get to the bottom of what is the truth, because I think what it all boils down to is I don't care if it's AI created content with an AI avatar, if it's the truth. What I don't like is going to these big name institutions, outlets like Fox or CNBC, and just knowing that they're feeding me a bunch of garbage propaganda. And you can just tell, because if you go to Fox and you go to CNBC, they're always saying the opposite. They're saying Fox is always saying what the Trump administration wants you to believe, and then you go to the other one and it's what the liberals and the Democrats want you to believe. And the content is so skewed in a way that it's just like it makes me want to vomit when I listen to it. I can't listen to it anymore because it's all garbage. But the average person doesn't know this. So if you're watching this video, yes, understand it's not about what you want to believe or because you like that guy and I'm a fan of that person. You want the frickin' truth so that you can make a real educated decision based on the highest probability of you getting the truth. Because I think if somebody gives you an option and says, look, I'll give you two options. I'm going to let you listen to people that you really like, but it's going to be all lies and propaganda and they're going to just brainwash you. Or would you rather get news from somebody you've never heard of before, but you know it's 99% the truth? What do you want? Well, I guess it depends on how stupid you are or how smart you are. All right, so the same dynamic applies to solopreneurs producing content, and it is worth naming directly. If you publish a newsletter, write articles, post thought leadership, or produce any content as part of your business generates trust in clients, of how your business generates trust in client, you are now operating in the same information environment as those 3,000 AI content farms. Not in the same league, in the same environment. Your audience is applying the same calibration to everything they read, including you. The differentiator is not that you write everything by hand, it is that your content is visibly human in the ways that matter. A named person behind it, with a verifiable track record, specific sourcing, an original perspective rather than generic synthesis, opinions and positions that carry the weight of experience, and a voice that exists nowhere else because it comes from a specific person with a specific history. AI can approximate all of these things at scale. It cannot be you specifically. So everything that I just said is complete BS because a lot of this is designed to make you believe it. So that's why I say, I want the truth. I don't care if somebody has a history or they're part of a network or whatever. It's like, I want to know it's the truth. I don't want somebody who, makes the most amount of money and gets, promoted by the biggest, most famous people, because that's where the propaganda begins. That's where most of the lies come from. And they know this. And the companies that have the money and the outlets know this. So they build influencers and they build people and they try to create everything that I just said. That's why I say it's all bullshit. This is all BS. What I'm saying is more the truth. And I just know this because I've had to do my own due diligence. And I still get it wrong sometimes. And then I find out that I was telling people something that I thought for sure was the truth. And I find out that, well, it wasn't quite the truth. Anyways, AI is writing the news. Some of that is fine. Some of it is a significant disclosure and trust problem. The calibration for readers: ask who published it, who reported it, and whether there is a real person with a track record behind the byline. Now, I would say yes, it's BS, but it's also the truth. There are people that you can find, that you can verify, that have a reputation for just, and a lot of times they will get canceled because they refuse to sell out and they refuse to be controlled. And those are the people that I want to follow, because nowadays with all the platforms, they might get blocked and canceled, but you can usually find out wherever it is that they can still produce. And people are wising up to that. The calibration for solopreneurs: the flood of AI content is not your competition, it is your context. Be the thing that is visibly not that. Subscribe to our channel, and we're going to dig down these rabbit holes. But like I said, you just got to really, really do your due diligence and put together a short list of people that you seem to think are fine based on your research, are telling you the truth on that particular subject. And you need multiple sources, and you can't just become a maximalist cult follower of one person. Those days are over, unless you just want to be a cog in the machine that gets manipulated. And some people are happy that way. Some people just want to think what they want to think, and then they want to be in the matrix, and they want to eat that delicious steak. And ignorance is bliss, as they said in the Matrix. Put me back in, and I don't want to know anything and remember anything. I just want a good life. I just want an easy life. I think most people don't feel that way. All right, guys, until the next video, let's get it.